That's cool. Don't forget the same link inside the actual channel.
Yeah, but we know like people. Good night. Welcome to the DeBrief TV show. Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah.
Always a pleasure to be with every one of you every single Tuesday.
Good evening.
They actually going on like almost 40 episodes. Like crazy.
Well, we running as lost cheers or friends or something.
Yeah, probably got more views than Parliament going on right now. But let's not take away from Parliament. But it's always a pleasure to be here with each and every one of you. To come and bring the DeBrief TV show again. I feel that. To get the to bring the DeBrief TV show is always an exciting time. As always, we're gonna beg you for your indulgence for just about 5 minutes or so while we share the link with the person. So you guys can couple the links. I get that, Pammy. Good afternoon. Good evening. Sorry, you're quick, Pammy. Huh?
Set a different. You want to go the actual video.
Right up on Facebook. I mean, you're a young man. You ain't even technologically savvy. Then it's a shame, Jermaine. It is a shame.
Link there, so you can send me that over.
Huh?
Oh, perfect.
You pull sure with Jermaine.
Send him over the actual.
He's a young man.
I sent it in chat.
But let me give you a chance.
No, the video.
Right in the chat. He's still struggling when it comes to technology.
I saw the one in chat, but the one they usually was saying when I actually got like a video like
Just send it in chat. Just copy it. That's what he trying to. He send everything.
Oh, it ain't come through yet.
Oh, he probably.
Last one, right? This one.
He probably ain't on the internet. Bear with us. We just wanna share to some groups. Some people have been waiting for us. Michael, you have it. Good. And you can feel free to share. I just wanna put it into some other chats, as I said, that would be waiting to join the discussion. And we want you to share as well with your groups so that we can discuss. We have a very exciting guest here today, a very exciting topic, a topic that have been making some rounds, and we want to basically bring it to Barbados. You know, the DeBrief TV show is all about debriefing topics, all about hearing people's views and giving people a chance to say what they have to, because many times they don't have other platforms that they can. But we're happy that we can bring a platform such as this to allow people to come and share their views, say what they have to say, and in a respectful manner. You know how we are when we ready, we get down as the moderators. But at the end of the day, we still think it is quite important that everyone has a chance to say what they have, and we're happy that, as I said over and over again, we're happy that we can bring this platform to you. So we have an exciting guest. I'm your host, Kimar Safri. On my left is Kimar Stewart. On his left is Simon Ali, and then on my far right is Jermaine Beckford. Jermaine was missing last week. Yes, Jermaine, we had a really good show with you last week, though, I must say.
You want me to walk off? No.
We had a real good show. I mean, like that. Before you, we had over 6,400 views, so it goes to show.
Trying to tell me something?
I'm not. Of course not. No, just big sense for nonsense.
Nice discussion tonight.
But obviously, Jermaine is in live. I think guests missed you last week, Jermaine.
They did?
Well, unfortunately, but they did. Not so much the moderators, but the guests. But you know, you always bring the life and the party when the people need topics. So without further ado, we want to just go on. We want to thank you for joining. Share, like the page, please, so that you can know when we go live. Because we have a lot of sharing to do, but the numbers are up to 53 already, and we haven't even started. Wow. Simon, introduce our guest. Good night, Wayne. Introduce our guest.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Michael Rapley is the founder and current chair and project manager of Equals, a LGBTQ plus focused organization in Barbados. Michael always had an interest in investing in making the world a better place. And at first, this was in the area of wildlife, having earned a BSc with honors in wildlife conservation from the University of Kent in the UK. However, identifying as a gay man himself, he jumped at the opportunity to try and make a positive impact on this community by working part-time for the Caribbean HIV/AIDS Alliance, facilitating weekly support groups and creating safe spaces for them. This led to the birth of Equals, whose main focus is to ensure the LGBTQ plus community have access to services they do not normally access due to fear of stigma and discrimination, as well as addressing human rights issues that prevent access to services. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest tonight, Mr. Michael Rapley.
Hello,
Thank you very
Michael.
much. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
It's an honor to have you here to discuss the whole issue surrounding LGBTQ community. And we've heard lately that the Prime Minister is looking to bring a referendum on same-sex marriages. She's also acknowledged our brother yet will be going to Parliament to discuss the civil union, or it's passed. Right. It was said in the throne speech, but it was read out by the Governor General of Barbados, Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason. And so we understand the importance of a throne speech, where it speaks to the government and what the government seeks to do and the direction of the government.
Yeah.
So persons were questioning why the need for a throne speech. I think if I understand it any differently, it would be the fact that the Prime Minister, and with COVID, needed to look at a new direction for the country, and the old throne speech would have been null and void because a lot of the government plans would have been derailed, or put, as the Bajans say, spoke in a wheel or a thing, because they could not do a lot of what they wanted to do. So the throne speech, well, I understand it, a little bit long, but I understand it. But it also speak to encompass a lot of issues and a lot of people, where I think it was the first throne speech actually encompassed so much, and as I said, looking to bring referendum on a number of things, but it also speaks to looking at the civil union. We also tonight want to look at the fact that there was some debate as well as it relates to the government allegedly trying to sneak in same-sex marriage or same-sex unions with the welcome stamp. And we also want to understand the discrimination and the abuse on the LGBT community.
Correct.
Because I saw some videos circulating where persons on the LGBT community were attacked, and videos were circulating. Well, some people saw it funny. We have to remember that's a life, and
That's right.
we will have our own issue here with the homeless. Where we
That's
saw.
it.
So
That's it.
we're in the same cycle as the understanding when it comes to the abuse on persons. We call them vulnerable persons.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about Equal, Michael, while we get down into the whole debrief. But bring us update on what Equal is, how it was found, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much, and thanks again for having me, guys.
Yeah, man.
So Equals was founded, as was said, through support groups that we had, through a part-time job I had working with the Caribbean HIV/AIDS Alliance, which was there. The support groups were to help promote basically safer sex behaviors, prevention against HIV, while creating a safe environment where the fellas could come and just be able to express themselves how they are comfortable expressing themselves. So we sort of birthed Equals out of that, because we realized that there was a need for an organization that really focused on, I guess, the needs of the community as it relates to accessing services, because we realized that while we were trying to encourage persons to get tested, whenever they went, they were being discriminated against by the counselors in regards to when they disclosed their sexual activity. And so
you could describe what type of discrimination?
well, they would make certain comments like, "Oh, I didn't realize you would partake in that kind of activity." Some persons would prevent two guys who would be a couple from getting couples counseling, saying that that's not protocol kind of thing, when it's very important to be able to have those open conversations in front of each other. And so those are a couple of examples, and there are other examples in the general healthcare facilities as well. I know one friend of mine, a transgender woman, was at the QEH to get some stitches removed. And when the nurse realized or came to understand that this person was a transgender woman, they basically just excused themselves and did not come back, and the person had to go home and take these stitches out themselves, the remainder of these stitches.
Seriously?
Yeah. So these are examples of discrimination that happens, and that's why we found it important to not only perhaps be able to provide some services through us, but also sensitize persons to the community so they understand the community better, and so that they won't discriminate that way. So that's sort of really, you know, in a nutshell, where Equals was sort
Well,
of.
Equals. Sorry, and you are one of the directors of Equal.
Yeah, currently I'm
Currently.
the chair. I'm
Chair,
one of
okay.
the founding members as well.
What long was the organization was around?
We've been registered since November 2013.
Okay.
You mentioned about services. What type of services do you provide at Equals?
Well, we do it through certain like satellite sites, depending. So we've identified safe spaces that we provide these services out of. So we do, a lot of our funding has actually come from HIV donors. So a lot of our stuff has been HIV and STI testing. But we added a psychosocial component to that because it has, everything should be a holistic approach when you're addressing issues. So someone might be in need of testing because we had outreach workers who would talk to the community and encourage them into testing, but they might not be at that place where being tested is a priority. They might have mental health issues to deal with, issues at home, issues with work, or being unemployed in some cases, or not having housing, you know. So, you know, these things sort of took priority. So we also found ourselves doing our best to try and alleviate some of these issues as well. Because again, these issues were putting these already vulnerable people in a more vulnerable position in terms of contracting
So
HIV.
someone actually asked Michael a question here. Someone asked here, Andrew Clement asks, can you be a little more specific about which counselors you are referring to?
When I'm talking about the counselors I was referring to earlier would be the STI counselors, the HIV counselors.
Okay.
So they would do the counseling, they would draw the blood or do the rapid test. So when I was speaking about counselors earlier, that's what I was talking about. Because they're specific staff. Yes, doctors do it as well, but when it comes to the public sector, there's specific persons who are STI counselors who provide that specific service.
Michael, I want to go back a bit with regards to a definition of terms. In your mind, in terms of, because there's some people who may be watching who may not understand what does LGBTQ and the plus stand for. Would you just give us a bit of an overview what the different terms are?
Sure.
If you want to call it labels, I hate the term labels, but in this regard, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need labels for understanding purposes.
Right.
So to basically get our heads around what a term means or how someone identifies.
That's right.
So I mean, the first four letters, which would have been the original four letters that most persons would have heard about, would be LGBT. So the L stands for lesbian. The G stands for gay, and specifically in this case, gay men. Transgender persons are those who don't identify in terms of the gender associated with the sex that they were born with. So someone who is biologically a male, they more identify with the gender of female, for example.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, exactly. And then you have the B, which is bisexual. So that's different from being a lesbian or being gay because they are solely attracted to the same sex, while bisexuals are attracted to both sexes or, you know, alternate sexes and genders.
And with the plus?
When you say alternate sexes and genders, because you said bisexuals are attracted to both sexes.
Yeah.
From my compartmentalizing in my mind, there's male and there's female.
Yeah. So I mean, we were kind of talking about intersex persons from before.
Yes.
Right. So it might not necessarily. So intersex persons get assigned a sex based on biological tests and examinations that would have been done. But of course, this isn't perfect, and so you might be assigned male, for example, based on, you know, what you have born and how your hormones are reacting to the tests, etc. But that might not be how you identify. So it might be that you identify as a woman or female.
It's based on the test.
No, this is how you feel as a person.
Oh, you feel as a person.
So the doctor would have probably assigned you basically a wrong sex or a wrong gender.
Or based on the norm?
Yeah.
Or based on the norms.
So my question would be, while hearing all of the different acronyms you call it, right?
Yeah.
One of the things is it's really confusing for persons that are not of the LGBT community. So oftentimes thanks for explaining it for all of us, because
we need
that, because you're hearing the word LGBTQ plus, but oftentimes those acronyms are changing.
Yeah.
So LBGT at one time, LBGTQ plus, and so there's so much different acronym every day added.
Yeah. So you'll hear like the I, which is intersex. So you'll hear LGBTQIA.
Yeah.
So again, it's not male and female. It's ambiguous genitalia. So for example, you might have something that resembles a penis, but your testes have not developed. So you have this external genitalia organ. However, you must also know that when a fetus is developing, what happens first is the sensitive part. So what we consider the tip of our penis, and the sensitive part of the vagina develops first, and then the actual genitalia develop, right? So basically, the clitoris. That's what it is. I was trying to remember exactly which part of the vagina. So the clitoris and the tip of the penis are very similar when the fetus is developing, and then you develop your organs. So sometimes those don't develop properly, right? So it might have been that this person, just because something is external, doesn't mean that this is a male.
Right. So,
as an
this
example.
could be a situation where
This
could be a situation where a man has a female genitalia sort of mutation going on him.
Can't call it mutation.
Well, I mean, actually, technically, it is a mutation scientifically. I mean, we think of mutations obviously as horrid.
Think about X-Men.
I mean,
Exactly. But
But
it is a mutation because it's outside of what we're talking about in terms of the norm.
Okay.
Right.
so it could be like a man, but he has the manly features, everything, but he has the thing of
Yeah, so he this person identifies as a male because he is interested in things that society has deemed a man should be interested in, and likes to express himself. Like example, we're all dressed in long pants and long sleeve shirts. Well, no,
I'm a male.
right. So that's how you identify. So exactly. So, but we're noticing that fashion is becoming a bit more ambiguous and fluid, and the things called skirts now, which are basically shorts and skirts at the same time.
Yeah.
So men are interested.
They used to say a man in a tight pants and a square throat years ago. Now it's
exactly, and now it's
because I want to buy you
fashion. So
but just before you take, I just want to encourage the viewers on there just to bring your questions, and you can feel free to call in on WhatsApp only at the 846-9912. We want to hear you. We want to ask if any questions for Michael. I think, as I said, this is a perfect opportunity to ask the questions that you've always wanted to ask persons in the LGBTQ community, so that they can be clarified for you, because oftentimes we have this misconception of people, or oftentimes we scoff at people because they are different, or we might call them mutants. If you remember X-Men, they were not accepted.
They were ridiculed.
They were ridiculed, not accepted. So they had a continuity for
the X-Men were actually developed as a metaphor for the LGBT community.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know that. And the guy, that player Magneto, actually, we didn't know that. So I can't remember his name. So whatever. He's actually gay. I didn't even know that. So we want to ask the questions. We want you to ask the questions, because this is a perfect opportunity. Because many times you can't stop the gay person going downtown and ask them questions, because they may think that you're on the attack. So you have a person here who's in an environment where he's willing to answer questions, bring the questions, so that your perception could change.
Correct.
And thing. So
well, I mean, I'm not necessarily here to change perceptions, but provide information, and you can decide what's
well, true, but no, perception is somewhere greater than reality, and so perception in some cases get us in trouble.
Well,
so
yes.
so
going back to questions now, Michael, you identify with regards to equals some of the causes that you're championing as it relates to even discrimination, because one of the things that we have to recognize in society, regardless of a person's sexual orientation or lifestyle, there's certain inalienable rights that they have. Like right to work and have a decent pay, decent work, a right to housing, a right to access health care. Because we don't want a situation in society where persons then are forced to live what you would call either down low lives or underground
which is kind of what happens now. And it's funny because I hear sometimes the argument of, I don't have a problem with openly gay people, but what I have a problem with is the down low persons. But then you have to understand that the persons who are down low because they fear the discrimination that they're going to face, because some persons do face that discrimination
So,
publicly.
So Michael, all right, I'm
Really, voice is
understand.
good.
Sorry, so Michael, I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm appreciating the lane that you're going down, but I want to be a little devil's advocate here for a minute. All right,
you can be.
Here we go, Jermaine.
We make it sound bad. But
Go ahead.
look,
Question.
you just spoke about discrimination, right? Now, Simon spoke glowingly about the right. You got the right to vote.
Yeah.
Can you name a gay person in Barbados who was denied the right to vote?
Not to my knowledge, but now here lies the issue: is that we do not hear all of the human rights violations that happen. The police,
Go ahead.
the police ignore people when they come to report violations against their human rights if they then realize that this person identifies as gay, or if it is an attack on them because they're gay. They ignore that fact. I had someone. We have a tool that we use to record these incidences because the police do not. So I had someone come in and tell me that when they went to the police to tell them that their life was being threatened by their stepfather, the police laughed in their face and told them, "Go along. I don't want to hear about this issue."
You see, it's interesting you made that you brought that example, because I could also bring an example to you where females would have went to the police and said they were being beaten by their boyfriends or husbands, and the police ignored them as well.
Okay.
So you can't really make it that it is specific to.
I'm not saying it is specific, but I'm telling you this is what happens to this community. And you're telling me this is what does happen to some women, and that is wrong. So you cannot compare them and tell me that I am dumbing down. That is exactly what you're saying.
I am saying to you that all the things that you're saying that happens to the LGBT community, they also happen to other subsets in society.
Exactly, and that is why.
I have an issue sometimes where you fail to recognize what is happening to other persons, and yes, you have to represent your constituency. These are your constituents, right? But let us recognize that what is happening to your constituents is not unique to your constituents, but it is Barbados, because even access to housing, there are 20,000 names of persons at the National Housing Corporation. Male, female, intersex, straight, lesbian, whatever. Everybody applied. The minister has said publicly the other day, realistically, we don't have enough houses to help people, right? So over the years, persons applying for houses could not get houses. If you go to the civil service, the Ministry of Civil Service, they could show you thousands of applications for persons whom have
get the point
for jobs. I'm just making the point that I understand you are representing your constituency, and I respect you're doing that. But let us recognize that what is happening to homosexual, to the LGBTQI community in Barbados is also happening to.
But my question is, does it make it right? Does it make it any less wrong for those persons to experience that?
No, it doesn't.
No, exactly.
Right.
So
has a right
your
to
point is null and void. Because we are not here to talk about sex workers or persons who inject drugs. We're here to talk about the LGBT or disabled persons even. We're here to talk about the issues the LGBT persons face. And I'm not saying, and the issue with housing is the persons who are delegating who is going to housing might have biases and say, well, I'm not putting this person in because they are gay or they're lesbian. This person because they're disabled, or this person because they do sex work. So, discrimination happens, and the point is, as Mia Motley rightly said, like, we're not here to, everyone, no one should be left behind, and that is extended to everyone. But right now we want to focus on
as an advocate too,
the kind of things that our community faces. What are they? And that's what I'm trying to
as an advocate too, I gotta agree with you there, Michael, because at the end of the day, it is that you're championing the cause for the community. You can't champion the cause for everybody. You have to focus on your part, on your people, because in most cases, if you don't, then who is?
Exactly.
So I agree that as advocate, we would love to champion many more causes, but at the end of the day, our causes are so overwhelmed because there aren't policies to protect. There aren't, well, people may say the law protects all, but the law discriminates when it's ready.
Exactly.
As you said, counselors and people that have the medical expertise to help people, they discriminate. I remember one time being in the hospital, and you know, this was the time when you had to give your information through this little door in A&E.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the homeless guy literally had to shout in his ID number, his name, and
Seriously?
everybody was allowed to go in that door. So I know full well what the discrimination is and what it can do. And you have to stand fast.
And I'm sure you see all kinds of persons ending up having to come here.
Yeah, even the same gay community as well. So yeah, so we understand it. And you have to champion what you have to champion. So, I mean, don't give up.
I think that, Michael, we need more public dialogue from people. I mean, everyone is not as bold as you in your community to come out and say, well, I am gay or whatever, to come and talk about it, because if you're not careful, somebody else is carrying the narrative for the LGBTQ community, and that's what's really happening.
No, exactly. And so I'm glad that I'm here and inviting to occupy this space, and you know, so I'll do my best to educate.
But what about, I would like to ask you talk about you have a recording mechanism for persons that come within the LGBTQ that complain of, when they're abused. So now, I remember in the homeless community here, we also had a lot of discrimination, violence against homeless, and you guys would have seen it recently.
Yes, with the young boys.
With the young boys, and then the water throwing on the homeless. But we forged a relationship with the police.
Yes.
That is out of this world now.
Yes.
That quickly they're acting on our behalf and acting for the homeless.
Which is great.
Have you guys within the LGBT community taken the complaints, filed it with the Police Complaint Commission, or have you guys put that information in a statistical format and put it out there so people understand? Because far too much time, I'm using my PR kind of hat here now.
No, exactly. You need the data. That's half the argument that people come with. Well, we don't hear about this happening, so it can't happen. You know, so that's what we're doing sort of now. We do have 1 or 2 contacts within the police force, but we do definitely need to work on building a relationship. And you know, that kind of does take resources as well, because you can't just up and find someone. We do sensitization workshops, educational workshops.
Interesting question is actually being asked here for you, Michael. Is there any sensitivity training initiative with the RBPF and the LGBTQ?
So that's sort of, you know, what I was talking to. Again, as we were saying, it comes down to resources and time and all that, but it is definitely on our list of the many persons that we need to sensitize. So we focused a lot on the healthcare sector because obviously that's where our funding has been directed. But so we've also been able to tackle some social workers as well within that realm. So we have, you know, been able to target a few sectors, but we do want to broaden that. And we've actually recently developed a tool, a manual that we want to utilize and use, that can also be used now with the Employment Protection and Discrimination Act. That includes sexual orientation. And to educate employers on the community, their needs, because the fact is that they employ persons from the community, they also serve persons from the community. So they need to know the issues and sort of identify, because again, some persons are being discriminated at work outright, and the HR departments are not doing anything about it.
So question, Michael, I know that at one point in the United States, I'm not too sure it is the same. I think in the military, I think Obama was talking about the don't ask. Don't ask, don't tell. How applicable do you think that is now to be applied in Barbados, or is it a situation where you want people who would be of the LGBTQ community to feel, so you know what, I don't think I will be discriminated against if I come on and say, well look, this is my lifestyle, this is how I live, or who I am, or do you think it's a situation where it shouldn't matter whether this person gay or straight, once you can get the job done?
But exactly,
that
last point that you made, you know, it doesn't matter because again, right now, with don't ask, don't tell, these very people are in your institutions doing the work and probably outperforming persons, their straight counterparts, their cisgender counterparts. So you know, they're there and they're contributing to society, which is why I commend Mia Motley for, you know, making sure that no one gets left behind, because the very point is the LGBT community is and wants to contribute to society. They just want to live. They just want to.
But they contribute.
We have contributed for years.
Exactly. But once someone knows about your sexuality, the opportunities for contributing diminish because you start being discriminated against. You might get fired from work because someone doesn't like the fact that you're LGBT and concocts some way to get you fired, or comes up with some excuse to get you fired, and then you end up not being able to get a new job, and you have to come here.
Yeah. let me spin it from a different angle here. And one which, our viewers, thank you for viewing. If you have comments, please throw it at us as well.
There are actually some very interesting
I try not to get into those there. Yeah, because we have the expect. But please, if you're commenting, be respectful if you are.
No. There are people here speaking about the convention.
Let me ask this question. I don't want to delve down in this in a different way. And permit me, Michael.
Well, I will.
There is this notion in two parts. We're talking about, yes, everyone have a right to coexist, and I know the fight that you fight, whether it be of the LGBT or the homeless. There's some that are very similar, like when you take a homeless man and try to put him back in a job. You can't tell everybody because
a sex worker that wants to get out of sex work, mainly because she's been forced into that, wants to live a regular life,
right?
And is discriminated against because of that.
So let me ask this question. There is a notion, and I've seen it before, where there are some persons because they discriminate. I understand the discrimination thing. Now I have friends that are gay and respectable.
Yeah, I
can coexist with them. We can talk. We can roll. We even go publicly. I don't mind. But then there some know that. Well, let me put it with my friends. I know that they're not imposing upon me. Yeah. And I'm a Christian. I can say. Hold on. Hey, hold on. Let me finish. I don't want to lose my train of thought. I'm trying to be sensitive at the same time. Now, I could go with my friend. They know I'm a Christian, but they're cool, and I cool with them. They're cool with me. There are some within the LGBTQ community, though, that are very forward. And I remember when a guy I knew well turned me off. He said, "Well, I like you." I said, "Well, I'm not into gay. I straight or whatever." But then there was a persistent man. I could suck this for you, and I could do that for you, and stuff like that. And that kind of rhetoric kind of throw you off, because you're saying, "But boss, I don't tell you in Asian dialect, I ain't into you, I ain't into that."
Yeah, it's true.
You understand? We cool. If you want to knock me, show me. Be cool. But then there is that where some of them are outward with it, and it rubs you in the wrong way. That the ones now that are not coming off that way is affected by that.
Who sort of give people the wrong impression of the sub community, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, all sexes and genders have those individuals who are a bit more forceful than normal. So talking about that, they're regular straight men
who just harass
women. Send 50, 100 hellos on Facebook, even if they don't get. So what I'm saying is that it's a case where I think that it's also a cultural and societal thing. We're brought up, I think men are brought up to assume certain things.
Some comments maybe.
So that sort of issue can come across. I mean, just like how some people believe that everyone can be straight, I know persons who believe that everyone can be gay.
Let me rebut on that. Right? The reason I understand, and I see some of the comments from Romo and Dominic and the rest. That both, and I understand both of the sexes do push, because there are women that forcefully. I had a woman that she ran me down, and I seen her here to run down, but she ran me down. You understand? I understand that as well. But this is one of the things that I'm trying to challenge here.
I mean, the thing is, you would then associate that behavior with the community because they're part of that community.
Pardon?
You associate that behavior with the community
because
that individual was a part of the community.
Yes, reason why, right? You're fighting. Equal is fighting to end discrimination, to understand that whether you're LGBT or not, you're
There's a
supposed
place
to,
in
there's a place in
society.
society.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with the homeless. If somebody sees all the work I do over the years with my staff and everybody, let one homeless man go there now. Or we saw the murder of 2 persons this year. And it robbed the thing. Why the man there for the road? Why? Because don't forget, one of the things I want everybody to understand is, listen, we're dealing with a vulnerable population, not the everyday population.
That's right.
So we understand universally that man can run after woman can run after man. Fine. That could be within the LGBT community too. But our communities are small in terms of numbers, versus what is out there. So sometimes what our constituents do could bring down the whole
and it works.
house on top your head. You understand? So that's what I mean in terms of that, because they may not only try it with me, they may go there and then somebody say, you see this, why you don't like this man, this man, that I tell you that, why you don't want that around me? Well, you are innocent and you could come around, have social conversation and be respectful around your surrounding, and we could be respectful about other surrounding. I'm just saying our small vulnerable population.
Well,
that is the key I'm looking at.
Well, the thing is, you can't control people.
You can't. No.
So
But
it does affect.
It does affect.
But again, we all have to understand that everyone is an individual. Regardless of what community they're.
Yeah, but I'm just going from the advocate that we fight so hard.
Yes, and then again, so your impression,
yes.
there is case in point.
My question stems from the fact that the situation seems as though it's us and y'all
adversarial,
right? So I don't think that straight people, right, get up and say, well, I straight, so I deserve healthcare, I deserve housing, and I want stuff, right? So my thing is, how did it get to a situation where it's saying, oh, well, because you engaged in homosexual behavior that you are excluded from housing? Because I know quite a few persons who are homosexuals who have housing, who have the best healthcare, and they have access to the resources of the country, right? So I am wondering, how did a situation where you have all of these vulnerable people come in in one space with common problems of discrimination, right?
I don't see discrimination.
To have a similar cause of discrimination, but the other persons who are openly LGBT occupying some offices in government, of course, the healthcare sector, economists, but these persons are not being stopped because of their
Are they publicly out?
Yes.
Well, you may perceive that they're out.
Exactly. You might know, but the general public might not know, or other people might not know, because coming out isn't just coming out and bursting out the closet and everyone knows. Coming out is a process. You tell one person, then you tell another, and you select who you tell, and hopefully no one.
Not across you. I have a staff here, right? When they first saw him, I actually thought he was gay. He said, no.
I think exactly. There are perceptions as well based on mannerisms, etc., that we associate with communities, right? So sorry, I just want to address the issue. Go ahead. So as I was saying, like, LGBT persons occupy all parts of society. So the people have a little bit more privilege than some other persons as well. So these are more vulnerable communities from a lower class, perhaps, or again, they can come from middle or upper class and get kicked out of their home when they come out. So again, there is a class issue within the community as well, and that also affects discrimination and access to services.
Are greater within the higher classes or within the lower realms?
The thing is, now there's so many different types of discrimination that you come across. So if those people you're talking about come out, they might lose their positions. People might lose faith in them and being occupied those positions. But they might not face the violence that someone from the lower class might face in terms of like direct physical violence, but they may experience like cyberbullying and online harassment that is more subtle but will still affect your mental state, and then also results in you in that person like really believing, well, I might as well just stay quiet and to myself.
All right, we got some comments. Yeah, we got some comments here. There are a lot of them, but
you can read over Romo first. The last one.
Yeah, just let me some comments.
Right, Romo. Straight people are not having their human rights violated because they're straight. and discrimination is systemic. There are successful black people, but we can still acknowledge that racism exists. That's a very good,
very good point.
Go ahead.
Sancho Walker, I question discriminatory actions of people against subgroups, races, etc. When people act like this, they view it from a behavioral sense of insecurities, weaknesses, pridefulness, and ignorance. And we go up a bit more. We got Ryan saying, it's so wrong, very wrong, and Barbados is one of the most God-fearing places to be lucky in God's eyes, and look what these politicians want to bring it to. It's not right at all.
But before you go on, when Aline also made a comment previously, which I wanted to address.
All right, hold on. Let me get them first, and then hold the comment there for him.
But no, I'm responding directly to a comment that he made, and hold on, just let me
Go ahead.
I'm making the point that his comment to me was quite offensive to the LGBTQ community, right? Whilst we are having this discussion, whilst I may not necessarily agree with something, it will not mean that I will sit down here and allow you to make those sort of offensive comments to a guest.
But the freedom of speech, expression, so.
There's freedoms, but
don't let me make this an argument, guys. The discussion going.
This is where we can go divide, because okay, we are giving the LGBT community freedom to speak and express themselves, right? And then when the gentleman now is expressing himself,
we can't censor him.
You don't have to agree with either side. Yeah. Right?
True.
Both sides could be right or wrong.
Once he's not cursing.
But once he ain't cursed, this is his.
Well, also once he doesn't threaten me.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you block him. Trust me. He'll be blocked.
Don't make sure they say
I don't know what the comment
Ryan,
is,
Richard, Ali, engage Ryan. But I think that even hearing this discussion years ago, and I think for me, I have grown a lot as a person in terms of my mindset. And I think by studying in England and traveling a lot, it has opened up my mind to see the world and see people for what they are. Just that, people. Mm-hmm. Whether you're straight people, whether you're gay people, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whatever. There's such a thing there's such a thing as courtesy. There's such a thing as tolerance. And the thing about it is that nobody's trying to force, I mean, especially on this program, we're not trying to force a particular lifestyle or way of life or how a person is on anybody. But we cannot continue to live with our eyes,
Are we head down in the sand?
Or exactly, our heads down in the sand, not understanding that everybody's not going to love the same way that you do. Everybody's not going to have the same interests in the opposite sex as you do. But does that mean that they can't be a professional doctor or lawyer?
Definitely not.
They can't be a chartered accountant?
They
can't be a bus driver? They can't be a tailor? They can't be a seamstress? So what I'm saying is that we have to go beyond the labels. And that's what I was alluding to at the beginning. LGBTQ and things. Yes, it's good to have labels, but get labels at the same time to really people from seeing people
because
for what
it focuses on your sexual orientation or your gender identity, and that's not how that individual identifies, right? So you identify with, I guess, your career, right?
Yeah.
So people want to be able to identify that, but when people are focusing on some other aspect of you, for example, that you have to wear glasses, then you're gonna probably start identifying more with someone who needs to wear glasses, as opposed to your career, which is what you mainly want to focus on.
It is interesting you say that, because you're making a very valid point. Persons look at you and they say, "Oh, he gay." She a lesbian.
He's a B.
But
he's a B.
Perception. But nobody looks at you and says, "Oh, he's a heterosexual." She like.
It may be debatable if you're in a crowd somebody.
But still, we can't ignore the fact that we grew up in a Christianized society.
Yes, we have.
And there's still very much, the pillars are still very much embedded in the psyche of Barbadians.
Is it Christianity?
But I'm not saying that the society is totally Christian, but I'm saying the principles of Christianity are embedded in the minds of Barbadians. So even if they don't live up to the practice, they still think along those lines, and they will still hold some. They will still hold some opinions as it relates to the LGBT community.
Yeah.
If you dig deeper into the issue, if you get more scientific, you will find that most of those persons will not shy away from the conversation now, because it would bring a greater level of understanding.
Correct.
So this is where it comes. The issue comes that we are not teaching Barbadians about their bodies.
Yeah.
And teaching
about respect
teaching our children to understand these issues. Because if you know have a child who's saying, well, mommy or daddy as a boy, he likes boys. The first thing is to pull out the Bible and say,
to beat it out of him. Beat it out of him.
Right? It's a deeper issue at play, right?
Correct.
Some would say, call the psychologist, call the priest, call the doctor, call someone and look for some type of response as to why the child is saying that. I found that within Barbadian society, we were just quick to kick out the house or to got some sort of aggressive reaction.
But, I mean, it also comes down to, sorry to cut you just briefly, but you know, we're so obsessed with our image, and that is negative to how a Bajan family unit should be. You can't have a gay son because that looks bad on
especially
me.
how you is in society, that looks real bad on you.
Exactly, like it doesn't. People think that reflects on how you've raised that child.
Right, and that's the thing to
that isn't the thing, because that child is probably getting straight A's until you found out about their sexuality, is been accepted into one of the Ivy League university, but then you're going to cut that, you know, not support them going to that university, and then what's happened?
I would like to say one thing to the Christians that are watching, and I myself, I am going the direction of Christianity as well. But
It's all right.
Okay. There's one thing that I often go by out of the Bible. Jesus said, and if Christians actually listen to these few words, then they wouldn't necessarily be the first ones to jump and attack the LGBT community. He who has no sin cast the first stone. No, I'm not saying. I'm not going to tell you that this is right or that is wrong, because in the Bible they have the 10 Commandments. All right. Just as homosexuality is regarded as a sin in the Bible, so is adultery, so is lying, so is murder, so is stealing.
That doesn't mean any of it is right.
No. I'm saying none of it is right. So when we sometimes get on our high horses and we decide that we're going to cry down the LGBT community, we need to remember that, as you have correctly said, a person could be an LGBTQ member and not stealing anything from anybody, ain't lying,
still a productive member of society,
right? Still doing what it's supposed to do. So, whilst a person who identifies as heterosexual, male or female, all right, is that person who is doing the most lying, the most stealing. So, can we really judge?
Hold on. No, it's not about judges. Let me come from it from that Christian perspective. One of the things I find challenging within the Christian community, as a Christian, is that I find that, to me, seemingly it is like if the church is fighting the LGBT community, and the LGBT community in a sense could be seemingly look like if it fighting the church. Those were the challenges for me within the Christian.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's because the church are trying to deny this group certain rights.
But can the church?
Well, technically no, right? Because
so why the fight then?
There's no need for
fight. Because of their beliefs.
Right.
But what I was gonna say something. I'm trying to really collect my thoughts.
Right.
But they are persons of the LGBT communities that want to and are also contributing members to the church and churches. And just as they are adulterers and liars and thieves.
But let me work on that church thought.
But no, I agree.
But here's what I'm saying.
Pedophilia is a big problem.
Right.
Church.
Yeah, but don't let me. I don't want to jump on all of that. What I'm just saying is that the church in itself whether the church stands up against, the church is looked at generally as a moral standards of society, where it upholds or should uphold all the morals within the Christian community. Now, as I said, the challenge for me is where the tick for tack, where the church is supposed to position itself to pray and to keep and to lead people. But it cannot, if the church says, I don't accept a behavior or I don't accept a way,
accept the person.
Is it that it has to be regarded as a fight because in my opinion the church isn't or can't stop because they're not policy makers, they're not legislation, they're not in parliament to stop So why then so much of the fight?
Well, I
between
think
the
that
two?
will be a discussion for y'all.
Right, but-
No, I want to see why. I want to see
I wanna
why
discuss
the
some of that.
LGBT will rise up every time the church.
Because
says
they have to
something.
defend themselves. What do you mean?
No. Okay, defend against what?
What they're saying. If someone is going to say something negative about you and it is not true, you do have a right to you
To
know
rebut.
to
No. So okay. So if I say you're the thief, I believe you have a right to defend yourself to say, hey, where is the evidence to say
Right.
substantiate that I'm a thief?
Okay.
However,
But
if a
if
church,
you're gonna call me gay and I'm gonna go, yes, I'm gay. What is the issue? Where's
But gay
the
means you're happy.
correlation?
correct? No.
No,
So what I'm saying then, while I'm seeing the tick for tack and arguments between the two, if somebody says you are a thief, you have all rights to defend. But what I have a challenge with is again the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech again. To say if somebody says being gay is a sin. If my book says it is, and they uphold this book, it is in the book.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
mean, or it doesn't stop you from doing what you're doing. It doesn't stop you from
That's right.
being with who you want.
Right.
So what I'm
But here's the
always
thing
trying to
is
find the
that,
fight.
I mean, let's take it back to the legal side of things and like human rights and violations. So the thief has violated someone's human rights by taking their item,
Yeah.
right? But the gay person has not infringed on anyone's rights,
Just by being themselves.
right? Just by existing, right? So you can't really compare.
No.
compare the
That's
two
not what was
things.
covered. I said if somebody
Right,
says
so
you
then
are,
they don't
you
have a right,
to
right.
defend
so
that.
the thief, because they've infringed on someone else's rights, will be punished. But again, are you going to punish someone for existing and not having done something?
Very
Right. So
valid
no. What I'm saying, okay, you are not. If the church again, earlier we said when Aline spoke, we spoke of a freedom of a speech.
Yeah.
The book that they
Right. So
they
I mean,
look
again,
at speaks against.
all I'm going to say to it is that people have a right to defend themselves.
No, I am happy defend.
Right. Okay, well, I mean, obviously I'm not quite getting where you're coming from, so
So let's continue. Let's move on.
Right. No, because we're gonna we again. I understand, and I just don't want to for any misconception. It's just at the same time, what I'm saying is we have both Christians and we have both persons in the LGBT community watching
Right.
and what's not. I'm just saying that yes, I find time like I'm in the public limelight, and I see comments when I go into the media about people may say this and say that, and I never get from Barbados today and say I ain't a thief, I ain't a because I often understand people have the freedom to express however,
Right.
as
Don't
long
take it
as
personally.
I don't take it because
Right.
I used to, and you find that you're
grow,
so
you grow.
distracted
Yeah.
from what you're focused on, from what the church focused. Because I'm not blaming your community in any way.
Ramon just made a very interesting comment here. He
Okay,
also addressed.
but I'm just saying both the church. I find both the church, in my honest opinion, is wrong in their approach, and also
Yes.
both the LGBT community
Wrong.
has been
Too
wrong in
adversarial.
their.
Too
It's
adversarial.
become
they are
adversarial.
right. But again, it is the church who has started the
Right.
argument.
I would. My
Well,
mom
you
always
see-
said, "Let's see who's the most mature."
At the end of the day,
I would just go as
but-
far as say that.
I want to see a bigger. My whole thing is even. My view is much broader than that because at the end of the day, we are still warm Barbados. We still have to function.
I don't think we want Barbados.
Well, we're trying to be one, whether we
We're
like
trying
it
to
or
be
not,
one.
because at the end of the day, you pay taxes, I'm supposed to pay taxes. My blood group can save
So
your blood group
you
and
say
so
you're
on.
supposed to
Turn the
pay
phone
or
on,
pay?
quietly.
Yeah, but I pay.
You like trying to admit something here tonight?
No. My point is this, right? If we could just see past the different little personal issues that people have and see the bigger picture, I think that as a society, we could be a lot more productive.
We are not.
Because-
We are not.
I'll
We
tell
are
you
not
this
going to
why.
see past it though.
But I'll tell you this, I'll tell you why. I have had services done at my home, or I've had operations done by persons who were of the LGBTQ
Some you knew,
community.
some you didn't know.
Some I knew and some I did not knew. Sorry, did not know. Sorry.
Full thing.
That's it. So it doesn't matter.
In certain organizations in Barbados, particularly ones who focus more on like North American standards, when you have tourists coming in, There are usually couples who enter into the space. So you can have 2 males and you can have 2 females who are married.
Yeah.
And you engaging them as the customer service representative, you have to refer to the males as Mr.
and Mrs.
and Mrs. regardless of how uncomfortable it may be for you as the worker.
Sorry, you're telling. I just want to make sure I got you right. You're saying the same sex couple has to be referred to as Mr. and Mrs. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes, and this is in Barbados, right? And I used to work at an organization, I won't call its name, and this was common practice.
No, wait, but is that what
That's
you're
what
saying?
I'm saying.
Is that what you're saying?
Right. So I'm saying when the 2 males and the reservation would show
Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs.
But then,
right?
you've got to correct yourself when you see that they're both the same gender.
But okay,
because now you're disrespecting someone's.
But no, I'm referring to
identity.
what I see on the
Yeah,
paper, right?
which is fine. If someone has written down that, then
Yes.
what else are you gonna know,
Right.
right? But again, you have to amend that when you're presented with the knowledge that this is actually a same-sex couple, right?
No, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is,
I lost.
2 gentlemen, a couple. Because you don't want me to call a gentleman, but a couple.
Yeah.
But use an example so that we get
perceives to be what I perceive to be 2 males
Right.
enter into the establishment, and on the reservation it reads Mr. and Mrs.
Right.
But in my 2 eyes, I could clearly see
Yes.
2 men.
Right.
Protocol is you refer to the couple as Mr. and Mrs.
Right.
If you run afoul of that, you find yourself in trouble with HR. If you are a Christian,
I have another question though. But before you continue, just very quick. If the individuals tell you that then you have to refer to me as Mr. and Mr., then do you abide by the customer? Or what if you continue to refer to them as Mr. and Mrs. when it's both male and they complain to your management? Then what is HR's policy there? So you see where it gets.
But I think you missing Lars about here.
Hold on, let me keep my finish. Is this point?
right? So, but again, right. In a case like that, though, you would request what you prefer to be referred
Yes.
to
And abide by the customer.
as the person entering into the establishment. So it will not be a case where it is here or there or whatever.
Right.
But my thing is, as a Christian working in that particular industry, and you are now forced to refer to what you see as 2 males by Mr. and Mrs. If the Christian finds himself in the HR room, what would be the response of the LGBT community and the response of the church, given that the person chooses not to violate their Christian principles and to refer to 2 males as Mr. and Mrs.?
I got the HR.
Do you think the person?
Yeah, I mean
Well,
that again comes down to the HR policy. I mean, I think that you have a right to be comfortable with who you serve as well. So if they can exchange your table, if it's a restaurant, for example, which I'm assuming it is, with the example you given, maybe you can exchange with another staff member, because at the end of the day, the couple also wants to receive the best service they can receive. Right? So if there's someone who is perhaps more comfortable or better suited to serve those individuals, then go ahead and do that. But at the end of the day, you can't tell someone how they identify when it comes to their gender.
So with the churches, in terms of the marriage, the LGBTQ, I think I find it in American system more challenging, where it's seemingly like the LGBTQ have to be married by a priest or have to be married in the church, rather than saying, because if I'm a priest and I say, well, my book say it ain't say gays or whatever, we just doing man or woman. Then if 2 couples, whether whether female or male comes in, I think that I should be given the right to decline from marrying the 2, because that's my principal practice. Where I know we've seen in the States where suits are brought against person, and this is where I said, and I keep calling, this is where the fight in the church is.
Right, okay, so this is a better example of what you were talking about. Okay, right? So I understand now what you're saying. Now I understand what you're saying. That's good based on that example. I mean, again, it comes down to to rights, and you can take that lawsuit, and then it depends on what the
law says.
the law or the judge determines, right? And I guess you have to know what the risks are for denying someone a service, right? But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone in every sort of environment also wants to make a point, just like how, there was the lawsuit against a lady who spilled hot coffee on her lap in the car from McDonald's, taking that lawsuit to them, right? So, it's an individual thing. At the end of the day, we, as I said, just want to be able to exist and contribute to society without being discriminated against, without being harmed. So that's the end.
So you can safely say that your organization respects the rights of a Christian deciding that, you know what, they may say, and I say they because we have established the us and them argument, right? No, it's reality, right? A Christian person may say, you know what, they say they want me to call he a woman, and I'm doing it. So because just as how you have rights,
right?
The Christians also have rights.
It has the policy, right? So it comes down to the policy of the company and the business. Again, the individual who's seeking the service wants the best service.
Yeah.
Which is why we have a referral system of persons who are happy to take and see persons of the LGBT community and receive the proper dignity and respect that they.
But should it be like that?
It shouldn't be.
Do you think, Michael, that organization, regardless of if it's governmental, non-governmental, whatever, has the right to make a determination to an employee that if you want to work here, regardless of what your moral suasion is or what your Christian beliefs are, people come in here and say that this is how they want to be identified, and you will do that, and if you don't do that, then I will fire you. You think that's right?
Yes, because you cannot disrespect how someone wants to be identified. What if someone was referring to you as a female? How would you feel?
Well, question, or will you be disrespecting my views on what is man and woman?
The views is the thing, because again, as I was explaining earlier, gender is socially constructed as opposed to biological sex.
Okay.
Right? So again, we have assigned these traits to a man and a woman based on how they're born, right? So we expect men to do certain roles in the household and based on the fact that they have a penis or a vagina. That's the end. That's what it comes down to.
So you're assuming that male.
But I'm saying that some persons would identify as the opposite gender to how they
right. So let me go a little deeper. We're going into school now, and you have children going into school. We had a case here recently, months ago, whereas a young boy went into the school and want to be identified as a girl amongst other children. Now we have many things that come out of that. He wants to identify as a girl. Is he going to use a girl's bathroom? How does he influence and how does he affect the other children that obviously no learning?
Right.
And we are brought up with the biological features of a man having a penis, a woman having a vagina. What are your thoughts on that?
So at the end of the day, and this comes down to even like when we're talking about adoption and parents, opposite sex couples, normal couples, I guess in this case, bring up gay children.
It's funny that you said normal couples.
That's what we determine as normal, right? Society has determined this as normal. But also so that people out there will understand what I'm referring to, right? So a heterosexual couple, right, brings up gay children. So and they see heterosexual activity all the time, but that doesn't stop them from becoming, well, some people will say becoming gay or being gay in general. So having these influences does not determine or affect your sexuality. What it might do is it helps you realize that you might also want to explore this, right? And again, people who think that you choose to be straight or gay, you have to ask yourself, can I make that decision and be comfortable with deciding to be attracted to a same-sex person as a heterosexual? If you cannot, then the argument is gay people can't either. If you can, then you're probably bisexual.
It will be difficult for me, knowing, for example, that I have a daughter going to school, and you mentioned about exploring being lesbian, knowing the fact that there are so many difficulties that y'all have and discrimination that y'all have within your community, for me to want to give my daughter that opportunity to be in that the difficulties and be associated with the issues that you have.
Yes, and I mean, however you realize your child might grow up, they come down to if they develop a disability, for example. You now know that your child is going to have certain difficulties as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sort of compare the two in that sense, right? Because it's something you don't have control over.
But I don't think you could compare
you don't have
disability
control over
with sexual
someone's
orientation.
sexual orientation, right?
But
and
I
again,
think
you can disagree with that.
But Lonnie, you do recognize that whilst you're speaking, and you're saying y'all and them, right? But let us remember that there are just as many issues amongst you call them opposite sex couples, but then correcting and said heterosexual,
is a better
right?
better
So
phrase.
all of the issues that it is hypocritical sometimes, because all of the issues that we like to sit down and accuse the LGBTQ community of are all issues that are happening within the so quote unquote regular communities 1,000 times over.
But
Let us remember that.
Abuse happens in the home regardless of sexuality.
We're having a conversation based off the fact that you're gay. Because I don't sit down every day and tell people are you straight, so
No, but no, it's because
people assume
it's a vulnerable group.
But I am asking for, and it just for the sake of a lot of other people too. Why are we talking about the fact that I'm straight, and why are we talking about the fact that
92% Christian community.
or you are gay? Like, if he wants to be, that's his.
That's right.
Right, but you see, he doesn't want the stigma and the discrimination.
Yeah, so they're not. I don't. So is it a fight about? So question: is that a fight about rights?
It is a fight about rights when they're being denied. So, for example,
give me an example.
Well, we can't get married. With the exact thing that we're talking,
Can't get married in Barbados.
We can't get married in Barbados. No, I mean you couldn't get married in a lot of places before either.
Obama made it possible.
And
No, I know you see it. So
But even look at treatment of
But I think-
homosexuals in Muslim countries.
They get killed, one.
right, exactly. So it depends on the country, of course,
So rights.
on the rights that they have. But it does come down to rights, and some of the rights that might not even be enforced. So we know that the buggery law is there, and that is not necessarily enforced when it comes to homosexual couples.
Right. So is that
It's more
what
enforced.
Is that?
But what that does is perpetuates the stigma because it's illegal. Then it's obviously.
But no,
wrong.
I think yeah. So here's what. But the buggery law did not state to man a man.
No, it doesn't.
It says a woman.
Yes,
men to women. Can women can bug men?
It's the act between two men.
No, the perception.
Exactly.
The
No, that's what I'm
perception,
saying.
right.
So the fact that there's some laws on the books results in these perceptions, which results in stigmatization, which results.
It's
Okay, so hold on. Is
It
it
must be
then?
noted that prominent QC Andrew Pilgrim came out in the newspapers. I think it's
Hold on, you chair,
Sunday.
Jeremy. You chair too low.
Sorry.
Look at
He-
the button at your side.
Sorry.
Right here. Look for the button.
Here.
Right? Yeah. Well, you distracted
Right.
by that.
Well,
That's good.
but he stated.
We'll come up, right?
He stated in the media over the last few days that based on what was read out in the Throne speech, that we now have to move towards the actual striking down of the said buggery laws.
Right.
Because you can't acknowledge same-sex civil unions between same-sex couples and have laws on the book that prevent them from partaking in certain
But
acts.
here's what I agree in that term to strike it, because you can't. There's no way you can have a law and then have that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though, I think this goes to a lot of. I heard one time a pastor said, "For too long we have been thought so wrong," and it goes to this to say that education, and I for one, let me blame the LGBT community here for a minute. I like to be open. No, a lot of the emphasis, and we agreed earlier, should be placed on PR and educating
That's right.
people. Because
I agree.
when we say, and I am not a highly educated person, I would think I'm a highly intelligent person, but finding out that buggery in my little time didn't mean man or man, it meant man or woman. So when we start to educate from schools and up, we start to reduce this stigma. Because I think many times we try to fight battles uphill rather than downhill. You know, so when you fight the battle uphill, you tend to lose quicker. And education should be around that.
But then there's some people that don't want to access that education.
No, but listen, I will tell you this here. When I started with homelessness, I remember an old lady came with a cane. I only tell you from personal experience with a cane. She was carrying about 5 bags in a supermarket. I tell myself, good Lord, somebody should help she. But when I was educating she about the homeless, she said, young boy, go home. Then I want to help. And I tell myself, well, mom, you look like you want help. You want help. But it goes to show that regardless, I was persistent in pushing. 10 years later, ain't nobody in Barbados that could walk and say they don't understand homelessness.
I mean, you gotta be persistent, but then some people see that as pushing it down your throat.
Right? No. I talk about the education. I don't mind pushing the education down your throat.
Right, no, but people are perceiving the education as...
So what about using people like us? And when I say using people like us that are not within the LGBT community that will say allies, because I kind of know that you have allies within, we talk about working together. Because I do have persons that come to my shoulder that are the LGBT, and I would never turn them away because you understand. I have people that come with all sorts of different things, whether LGBT, HIV or what. But if they want safe place to be, and I have the place, I will give them. But nevertheless, allies could say, listen, you guys are seeing this here wrong. I think y'all did. I saw it good and I saw it bad when the pastor spoke at one of the rallies you guys had. A pastor, I don't know who he was, I never saw him before. It didn't matter, but he spoke on behalf of the LGBT community, and that is an example of allies that can speak out.
But then here comes the issue with that is that some are willing, yes, but then some, because you know, as you were saying, you're concerned about your child and the effects and the discrimination that they might face. There was a volunteer we had for Pride who indicated that her parents, and she was straight and an ally, her parents were afraid for her because they were afraid of discrimination she would face just by going to Pride, even though she does not identify as a community. So there are allies out there that would like to, but again, they are afraid of the same levels of discrimination. Because, you know, there is this tendency of gay by association, but then there's also, you know, we don't want to be associated with someone who approves or supports this thing as well. So it's difficult that way, and that's why the movement has been a bit quiet, and we do what we can directly and work directly with the providers that we need to provide services for the community. Because it's kind of, I don't want to say easier, it's easier that way to, I guess, arrange, and again, it's making, in that case, the sensitization workshops more direct.
One of the things I am fearful of, and I'm just putting it out there, one of the things I'm fearful of, and well, I do not believe under no circumstances that our society should not offer, whether it be private or public, should refuse service to anybody, because I've seen it among my homeless many times. What I'm fearful of, though, is that we are building two societies. Where in some cases I see Donna figure, which don't get me wrong, I understand the purpose. Because you have to protect your community. By all means, this shelter was put here to protect the community of homeless persons. I understand. But what I fear is that there's a building of two communities in Barbados. Where the gay community is building all the services that they need to access because of foolish people in society failing to accept that these are individuals we live among their brothers and sisters. And when we do that, we're going to start to see probably hotels for the gay community, bars for the gays, this for the gay, and you build that
Separatism.
separatism.
I want to make a point.
I want to get his reply.
No, I want to make a point quickly. In response to what you were saying there, right? What it can also boil down to is that the LGBT community is effective at advocating for what they want,
For advocacy.
right? Whilst the others believe that they should just be given. So I gotta commend you for that. You advocate for what you want.
I don't
and you
think
put
no,
you want.
I don't think they say
No, but
that
the
way,
issue
but-
is we're being denied them, so
Correct.
we have to create them.
No,
Fair
but I
enough.
said to you,
Now,
I agree with it. I agree.
right. But at the same time, we're not creating two different societies, because at the end of the day, we just want to be, because we are a part of the society,
Yeah.
and we do access them normally. Certain people are able to access them normally. This a service provider that is sensitized to the community is still providing services to the general public, because again, I'm just going to use a figure that people say that about 10% of a population is identifies as LGBTQ, which is broad, right? So, someone is not going to make enough money off of 10% of a population. So we're not looking to do separate things.
No, I'm not saying you.
It's not going to be.
No, not you, not you,
sustainable.
right? Not you, nor the community. But it's
I don't
force.
I don't think.
I think that there's a force in
because it's not sustainable.
Not
so why
right.
would it
Not
happen?
from. No, understand what I'm saying. Not the LGBT fault. I'm saying that it is because of
Possibility,
the.
man.
the
But
thing,
there's
a possibility of
some
forcing
environments
to-
that you kind of need it to be specific.
Yes.
Because if you're going to a bar, you kind of go there to hang out and maybe connect
people.
with someone,
Right.
and you want to be able to have the freedom to know who you approach. Is of the same orientation,
Fair enough.
which again
So it's not-
prevents
prevents
the
the
issue
I
that
can't put the homeless at the Four
Right.
Seasons, so I understand.
Right, but it prevents the issue of someone
Correct.
hitting on someone who is not of the same
Same.
orientation.
Correct. No.
I got it.
So there are things like that, and that that's why there are some things that need to be specific.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from. It can result in that, but I really don't think it will end up that way, because again, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, let's
I got
pray it
comment
doesn't.
here.
It's not sustainable unless it's like a niche market.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
I got a comment here from Victoria Graves, and for me, she kind of sums up, in my opinion, what really tonight's discussion is about, and highlighting the whole issue of rights.
Okay.
She says, so she was replying to Katie Boom, since when was it a competition between who is getting more rights? The idea is about equity.
Yes.
Allowing LGBTQ plus persons rights does not take away rights from others.
Issue.
It does not prevent anybody else from continuing to have rights. All Barbadians are meant to have equal rights. The suggestion that there are certain sections of society who deserve more rights than others is both disingenuous and dangerous.
Very.
Yeah, again, it's not what we're advocating for. We're advocating to get the same rights that.
Right, so you're not advocating for more rights.
No,
So
we're not saying that we deserve more health care. We deserve only surgeries, and you all can't have surgeries. We are, we want the same things that the general public is allowed to get. We want to be able to access them. We want to have rights that do not deny that. So, for example, again, with the civil unions, we want to be able to designate a next of kin as our same-sex partner, but we cannot do that under the current laws, right? So
You can't. No. I think correction on that anybody could designate anybody to be next of kin, but you can't say that your partner, in terms of this is my husband or this is my wife, as my next of kin. That's what you mean.
Right.
Because anybody could be your next of kin.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, exactly. So, there's some rights that are preserved for a husband or a wife.
Okay.
So the union, the recognition in this case, the recognition of the union would allow that. So,
Can-
for
can-
example,
can
Peter
same-sex
Wickham
couples-
has got married.
Hold on, can same-sex couples adopt children in Barbados?
Not to my knowledge.
Not as a
Same-sex
couple.
couples
Not as a
don't
couple.
exist in
Couple.
Barbados.
It doesn't exist.
We-
But no, but
A same-sex couple does not exist, so they are not counted as a family unit.
no, the reason why I'm
Correct.
asking is because remember in the Throne speech they said we're gonna recognize certain types of civil unions.
Right. So
Well, you
that's-
don't know yet.
that is for the government
Not
now
to
to
debate.
Determine.
debate
That's
and
not-
decide
Right.
what rights they are going to
Yeah.
allocate a civil
Yeah.
union.
Go back to
So-
the comment that you was making.
Yeah.
The point that you were making just now before you cut.
Sorry.
Don't cut the man. Don't cut the man.
Because
Right. So we know that Peter Wickham's got married,
Yeah.
right? And so those places that acknowledge civil unions or gay marriages, he can get those rights that come along with that. But in Barbados, he doesn't have.
He's single man.
So
Single man.
he's still, yeah, exactly. He's still considered single, right? And so again, this is why the civil unionship and gay marriage is different, right? Because we can't get married and be acknowledged as a couple within the Barbados system.
Do you think the civil union
You'll have to
is
get
a good
married
move?
elsewhere.
Do you think the civil union is
I
a good
think it
move?
is because
or-
I think that in some aspects it allows the community to again contribute to society more than they can now.
Now, I heard one of your colleagues on the radio with Peter Wickham, and he was mentioning that the focus of equal is not about marriage. I think it was Rene Holder. He was
Right,
saying that
it's not the focus of the movement right now.
of your movement.
Right now, currently, is to address the more direct issues we face, which is discrimination, physical violence, denied access to services, being not kicked out of the house, being able to rent, being able to get work and not be discriminated based on your sexual orientation or gender identity. These are the issues. Well, that then comes a bit more along the gay marriage. But again, it isn't quite gay marriage because it's.
But
Two persons can get married. Only two persons. It doesn't have to be married.
On the application form, there's usually a box, male or female. So I'm guessing part of the movement would be to add.
Yes, so you need to add the correct prefixes or allow someone to tick sex as male and gender as,
But they have
as
other.
female. Some places have other.
Explain that.
My applications have other.
Okay, hold on. Explain. You said
Be able to check off that you are biologically a male, but identify gender-wise as a female. So, for example, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Okay.
Right, it's important to know the biology of an individual,
Okay.
but it's also important to respect how they identify and address how they express themselves, because it's respectfully their right to be addressed that way. But you have to know the biological components as a doctor to address. So as a transgender woman, which is as a man who identifies as a woman,
Yeah.
needs to get a prostate check because they're biologically a male, right?
Okay.
Which women obviously don't really have to get done. Because they don't have prostates. So things like that. You biologically you have to.
But let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question.
The
Hold on.
persons with some view, with a view that life was supposed to be simple, and we as human beings have made it difficult. And they will say that it's easy and simple to be a boy or a girl, male or female. And now here is we talk about an other or a man
It is
as
always
a
so.
woman.
There have been,
Making it a little more
there-
complex
I don't
for the
think
society.
it comes down to westernization, because there are tribes in Africa and they're the American Indians acknowledged other as a gender, and actually praised persons who encompassed both genders together as one. They saw these individuals as a higher being.
Really? How you being?
Yes, as they're
Just their religion.
That's a religion.
Yeah, that's their
That's
religion.
what-
So they acknowledge them as
So it's
someone
it's
who
not
is
argument that's
connected
it,
more spiritually,
But-
because they
But
can
here we are
identify as
going
well.
back to religion, and as mentioned before, being a Christian society and following the laws and principles of what we would say is God, we are now going against our principles, our laws, what we first set out.
I have a question for you though, but does someone identifying as the opposite gender affect you negatively in any other way than psychologically, because you have been brought up a certain way to understand something, and so now you're trying to process what you're seeing?
But
and what
affecting
you're
someone
understanding?
psychologically is very, very important. And
But how is it-
can bring the issue of where you're saying you could be threatened, is a serious
Threaten
threat.
how?
No, you don't go get into detail, but
I mean,
I do psychology. He's saying that if psychologically you could be off balance to do anything. So he's saying the threats could come from being off balance.
Anything can be a trap. But you see, my whole thing is that
I think
it's
we need to
about-
stop being hypocritical.
No, it ain't so much hypocritical. Everybody will have their own
His
views.
opinion.
It's alright. Everybody will have their own views. There are hardcore Christians, there are hardcore Muslims, there are hardcore different religious groups. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, it's still about tolerance, right? It's like
Absolutely.
Yes,
it's like the
it's
Black
about
Lives.
acceptance.
For example, it's like the Black Lives Matter movement believing that they can eradicate the KKK out of America. It will never happen.
So you would always have.
But what you gotta do is that you gotta coexist. You have to learn to coexist with other groups.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question going back on that. I forgive me. I don't know if BD is watching, but this is very challenging for me because I want to understand it. Now we all know that DD is a transgender, and for
Transgender
woman, right, and have been around for donkey years, you know, as they would call it. Famous among all of us,
performer,
and one person that I really respect and admire as well. Now, here we are on the issue of the whole gay and transgender, and I know she's spoken to abuse and what's not. Many Barbadians, in my opinion, and there's twofold, but many Barbadians have come to upset Dee for who she is. Everybody, you know, Diva Didi and everything like that. Now, what is so different that
you can
she
accept another
is
person
accepted, and so much so other person. I know some are against, but I think the way, like, and I recall, like, some of the way they are boisterous and lively and stuff, they're accepted. So what is so different about them being accepted, but others can't be?
No,
So
exactly.
challenging.
No, that's a good point. You know exactly what makes this person different from other, because these individuals have been visible and you've grown accustomed to seeing them and you realize they pose no threat to you.
Right.
But because
I don't even pose anything to Didi because
well, yeah, don't threaten me. Didi will come. But again, but that's
apropos people like all types line up just to see DD.
But then on the other hand,
they're very intrigued.
A younger masquerader, I think it was Mr. Polian, he had issues with people trying to stone him. So, but the thing about it is that it's different. It's that you grew up with DD, so you think, hey, that's cool. But then there's another person then, like the same Justin that would dance and so on. People at one point tried to attack him and so on.
But
another person, but they're not different.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how can that example of DD and these others that are accepted, how can they the example of what have they done? Yes, I don't think that DD arrived
they haven't,
overnight.
but here's the thing, they haven't done anything in particular but exist and live, and indeed they live their truth, and you know, because we see them, we've come to accept them. They've done nothing but exist and be a bit more visible than other communities.
Do you think that, in your opinion and in Equal's opinion, do you think that those that are hidden as gay person affect those that are open? And the reason why I give an example, I remember a time this gay guy said he liked me, right? So he said, don't like gay. He said, well, you don't like gay neither.
So then there's this internal.
No, so let me show you now. So when he said, if I show you my boyfriend, you might withdraw. So,
okay. So I'm assuming this boyfriend is very masculine looking.
Masculine? The man's a gangster. What is it, the man? But he walks in.
Okay, so the question is that we associate the term being gay with
being very
effeminate.
Exactly.
No, in my early opinion, yes. In my early,
but that's society's opinion. So that's also comes down to internal homophobia. So because this same-sex couple, for example, both very butch, very masculine, they don't identify as gay because they're not effeminate.
What was my problem? What my problem was is that I knew this man to be a gangster.
Right.
Like a man that you can't, because I understand if you tell me, okay, you're feminine, gay, and I can see it, and then you say, well, you like a nice dress, well dressed, and I understand that.
Right.
But as I said, they had a scene years ago. Forgive my language, bad man by day, bitch at night.
Yeah.
So when I see the man that was on the block, the bad man, because when he showed me the man, I thought he was showing me a man past he that was dressed well. I didn't know he mean the man that was showing, he boxer. And bearing in mind, the man was not with him. He was off standing, and you would never associate two of them because. But if you watch too good, when again, he's who drove the jeep and drove the man, but the wind is up, the car tinted. So what I'm saying is that those that are the hidden, I find affects the ones that are open.
No, but again, you have to look at what is the result of these two individuals having to hide, and exactly what you just said, bitch by night. You by using those terms, you have reduced this individual to a lesser being just because they partake in a certain activity. But the effeminate guy could be more man. Whatever term, whatever sex you use that then this gangster fella, right?
Well, true.
I want to add
But that
something.
depends on what we individually determine.
Because I was asking, there was more the more masculine one.
At the end of the day, that doesn't matter because that is the heteronormative. That's the heteronormative narrative that there is supposed to be someone that represents a man and a woman in a relationship. That's the problem. And just let me finish and then you can go on. But because, at the end of the day, we know that gender roles are becoming a bit more ambiguous because, women are starting to do men are starting to cook and clean more, women are starting to do other activities more. There's more sharing of roles within the household now. And so, it isn't to say that one person, and, people tend to ask who's the man and who's the woman in the relationship. Well, I don't know if you haven't noticed, but they're two people of the same sex and same gender in this case. So there is no woman or man. They're both men or they're both women.
Well, how do they? Sorry, do they identify that
in this case,
internally? If we're living together, do we say one is more feminine than masculine than the other?
In some cases, that is the case. Again, that is down to socialization as well, though. But at the end of the day, some people are attracted to femininity, some persons are attracted to masculinity.
Within the same sex.
Within the same sex, but if you think about it, even within the heterosexual relationships, we all have preferences as well in terms of how someone expresses themselves, what they're interested in.
Right, so it's not usually because of Peter. Peter says he has a husband, he's white. So, but I
haven't heard it, so I don't know the context. He could be joking, or he could be referring to again.
He always says it on his moderate. He moderated to my husband. So,
right, no, but and he might say that, but he's also
the husband. But you see again the education.
Yes, no, and I think that sometimes I guess language is important because he's sort of perpetuating that.
Because I would say I thought he looked big. I thought he would be the masculine one. The other fellow.
All I can tell you is nothing sweeter than a woman. A question here was asked: do you believe homosexuality?
I have that right.
A question was asked: do you believe homosexuality / heterosexuality is a learned behavior or present from birth?
The nature nurture be.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that earlier. I don't know if the person's now joining, but again, you have heterosexual couples who end up having gay children.
Yeah. And
so, they're under all these heterosexual and heteronormative influences, but they still end up being gay. And that is basically,
some people consider that a choice.
I've made that argument already.
So there's a difference between a man who chose to have sex with a man and not be gay.
You do have a choice, but that is because
I heard that already.
I just want to say quickly, you do have a choice because everyone has a choice to do something.
Correct.
Because there are gay people who will get married to a woman because society deems that he needs to, and he also is protecting himself that way because he does not want to be discriminated against. So he's made that choice in terms of protecting himself. But that does not discredit his identity or sexual orientation.
Okay. Kimar, ask your question.
Is it plausible for a man to have sex with a man
And not be gay?
and not
Be gay?
be gay?
Yes.
Because I've heard it before, right? And I experienced many times where females have sexual activity with other females.
So they're trying to exploit.
I said that they're having fun and they like it, but
They're not gay.
Right. So again, we need to also understand that sexual activity and orientation are different. Right? Orientation is what you're attracted to. Sexual activity is what you do.
You choose to do.
Right, exactly, what you choose to do. So, for example, there will be men who, this happens a lot from what I understand, within the people who use drugs, that community, in that they sometimes need to partake in certain acts to get the drugs that they need. But that doesn't mean that. But that doesn't mean that they're gay. They're doing it for a means to an end. And sometimes some people would do it for a means to an end as well, even if it doesn't involve drugs. They have to survive, so they're gonna resort to survival sex work. And partake in acts that they don't necessarily want to, but they're getting money for it, so they're going
that
to do
behavior
it.
was also mentioned in the music industry.
Right. So exactly, like sometimes they're predators in all sexualities, right? You know. So they're we had the whole Harvey Weinstein incident with all the women that he's taken advantage of. They are men. They're exactly, and they're men who are of the homosexual persuasion who also take advantage of other men. So
that's just being a rapist,
right? It's just being a sex offender basically, and that has no sexuality
if you're gay or not,
or orientation exactly.
Right. I think that what we have to realize too is that, and I've gone past it, you can't shout and scream the difference of a person's lifestyle out to them. I remember being in church and people laying hands on people, trying to deliver them from being gay and all kind of stuff. And I understand. I've seen it from both sides. When I was heavily involved in church,
but some people come back from being gay as well too.
Right. Some people might, but then it might be a choice for some. It might be conviction or whatever.
Deliverance.
But let me finish my point.
Finish. You finish.
At the end of the day,
but you get too much in.
I think at the end of the day, it's all about tolerance. And I think we could go all over the place. We could talk about laws and this and that and what's right and what's wrong. At the end of the day, two things are clear. We have people who are heterosexual and we have people who are LGBTQ. And they're not going anywhere. You can't, it's like trying to, if it was as simple as politics, these could become these and these could become these.
As simple? As simple?
Yeah.
But a B can become a D easily.
Right, but so you can't realize it.
Right, but that's what they say.
Yeah, but we're right. That's what we need. We need tolerance. I'm not saying that. And tolerance does not mean acceptance. But tolerance means
but that is the issue. We're not.
The
tolerance and acceptance. You want acceptance because at the end of the day, you can still accept something but disagree with it, right?
Yeah, correct.
But when tolerating now is when you still feel malice towards someone, but you're putting up with what is happening.
But that's a first step, isn't it? That's a first step.
I get, in a sense, yes, but also not necessarily.
Michael, I want to pose a question to you because Simon just raised it in a way, and I said I have to follow on. Michael. Simon said, either Simon or Kimar said that you can come back from being gay. Some people speak of that.
Well, no, spiritually.
Hold on.
It's different.
You made a point to me previous to the show, and I believe you made it on the show, that you don't have because I believe it's a choice. You said it's not a choice, right? It's something within you. So that's your belief, right? Simon said you come back from being gay. So what is your opinion on that statement?
When you didn't go back
again, it comes down to in this case, the choice is regardless of whether in fact the person was delivered, was converted, or whatever the case may be.
But were they ever gay?
Or were they not? Right. Well, here's the next thing. They might be assuming that he's gay based on antics and not really talked or addressed the issue. Right. So you've just caused this trauma because it is a traumatic experience. I have not been through it, but I have heard persons who have been through it. It is traumatic and it affects people's mental health.
Right. Because there's some guys that may be effeminate or show the feminism, but they are not gay.
Exactly. But they were delivered for whatever reason. Right.
Okay.
Delivered from what?
Well, I guess in this case,
that's a different. That's a different.
So you're saying that homosexuality is a deep?
I never said that.
No. Here's what I mean. Only Christianity, there are people that will come into gay into church.
This is the assumption that the church has that they're being possessed. So that is what deliverance is all about.
Right.
And so they have not just actually address the issue before they have gone and straight bashed the person with the Bible to deliver them.
I do know of a guy though that was gay. He said he was back in the days they call it what, drag queen or whatever.
Right.
Where he would call it drag. He would dress up and cross dressing and everything. And he became a pastor in the church.
Okay.
And he still has his antics. You can still see the antics, but he's not gay. He
I mean,
can
you
say
don't have
he's
to be
not.
you don't have to be a drag queen to be gay either.
No, I'm not saying
Right?
no, but
You don't have to
but
be gay.
here's what
If
I'm
he
just
was-
saying.
if he was,
he was
I mean-
he identified as
If he, I mean,
as
again, you
himself as
can't
being
tell
gay.
persons how to identify.
Correct.
Right? So if he has now decided that he no longer identifies as gay and he identifies as straight, then that is fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, the point is you cannot force someone to convert
Okay.
No, it has to be a choice.
if they want to identify
Right,
differently.
but I don't want is a mistake that to think that persons that identify as gay has never gone back to
But
being
they-
straight.
well,
Because that would be misleading. 'Cause
Well, I
like-
mean, at the end of the day, that is what they have said, and
that's-
we will have to take them at that.
Correct.
They were.
But-
Yes, they have a word.
What I'm gathering here, though, is there will be some levels of confusion within the legal system.
Mhm.
Right? If you are making provisions for homosexual persons within the system, and then you wake up tomorrow and decide, well, I ain't getting more, so therefore I can switch back over to using the facilities for heterosexual people, right? I think that creates a problem, particularly when you go back for, or you go to make a transaction within the system. At one point you were
Probably like changing your name and changing your ID again.
right.
That's all.
So, but that becomes a case now where you can decide if you're gonna pay money or fine or so to be able to have changes from back
Okay,
and
so
forth.
Already
but no,
considered
but
as
you're assuming that we
American
have that again. You're making the assumption, or you're equating it with that the gay person has different rights or better rights than the
To switch.
heterosexual, and switching somehow affects those rights. But it doesn't. The point is that we're trying to advocate that the systems that we have accept the community. Yes, they would have been able to access services that have been specified for the community. And it depending on the organization. I mean, not us, we accept because, especially when we do the HIV testing and the stigma around HIV itself, we have heterosexuals that come and access these services because they feel safer, because there's an extra level of discretion that they're getting.
Yeah.
They understand that this
Say what you want,
community
that's what- yeah,
understands confidentiality. So
Okay.
they're more
I got you.
comfortable accessing the service.
Not only confidentiality, but you said the bigger word is it doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, and you can come in, or I mean, you can identify as heterosexual, have partaken in same-sex activities. Again, you know that you're not going to get discriminated because of that. Where for in some cases or in the past, the public sector, the counselor would have discriminated against you.
On the topic of identifying as X, Y, and Z,
We're gonna wrap up.
people might think this is a joke, but this is something that is actually happening in the world. There are people that actually identify now as being a dog.
That's gonna be
That
a
is nothing to
part
do
of
with the
it.
LGBT.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with
No, it isn't. But here it is. Jermaine, let's say, identify as being a dog.
Probably some women identify as one already. I just-
And he wants to be
No, but
seen as a
we're-
dog,
we-
and respected as a dog.
Well, then they'll get rights of the animal.
They'll get raised to the animal.
to get
I
slaughtered.
mean,
and
I don't know what else to tell you, because at
Yeah,
the end of
identify as
the
a
day, we
pig,
are
yeah.
advocating
They get
for
attacked.
human rights.
Right.
Okay,
But it's
my-
not
Totally
so.
different.
Yeah, totally different.
challenge
Can't
would
bring
be
it.
now, though, is to ensure we cap certain behaviors from affecting children. So I know that within America there are some persons who say that they're attracted to children. Right? So you will have older males deciding that he's attracted to
Boys and
younger
girls.
boys. Then you have older females who
But,
decide
right,
that
so we're talking about pedophilia, but again, pedophilia
But-
happens
but no,
across
and-
both
but they're saying
both
this is not pedophilia.
identities.
They identify
as the younger person. Well, then, if they identify as 6 years old, right, they're not a consenting adult. At the end of the day, that's another argument that we're making, is that the rights of the LGBT community are between two consenting adults.
okay,
Not two children.
Right, just
Right.
one. But I just made that point based off what you were saying and the identification scheme. So if you were saying, well, I identify as, and you want these particular rights, this person can argue, well, I identify as, and I deserve the right to date somebody much, a child basically. Right?
I don't
So-
understand your knowledge.
There was actually a case in England where a convicted pedophile used as his argument against the charge that he has the right to do that based on what is within him.
But was it right?
No, but
Okay.
the court,
That's-
obviously the court struck
Well,
his
no,
argument.
'cause it-
but I want to move on.
Yeah, you don't mean us they call that right. That lead into the conversation because again,
I wanna move on.
bestiality has nothing to do with the LGBT community. And stick on
I want to
point.
stay a part of
But
the
hold a minute, please. Right, there's just some people giving some comments. Simon, you just want to read one or two here, because we don't want to make people feel that we're not listening to their comments. We are watching the conversation, but just know we're going to read the ones that really make sense to us. Yeah, but we're engaging in conversations. If there are comments that we think are worthwhile to Michael, we would read to him, and we got 15 minutes before we wrap up.
Right, so children cannot consent to sex. What does this have to do with LGBT?
Correct.
Carry needle, pedophilia is different conversation.
Go back up to Kuroma. I think Shansia Walker had a question.
Honestly, I have a question. Why do you really think these individuals are discriminated against?
We answered that already?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like it's
if it's
discussed throughout
show the whole thing.
the thing.
Okay, so we don't need to go back over there.
Yeah.
There's a question that not come in, Simon.
Is it by Kellen?
Yeah.
No.
Is it worth reading?
Wait, isn't the community accepted and not discriminated against? I think Barbados is the most tolerant of communities in the Caribbean, but
Again,
keep saying that the civilian recognition is not enough. They are lobbying for marriage.
Right, no, exactly. Well, again, we're not lobbying for marriage right now. If we get it, then great, because that's human rights that we all deserve.
Just a question.
Say that again.
Sorry, no, not across. I think there's a misconception here.
Correct.
Sorry, just let me clarify the misconception. Equal, and you already told us what equal is about.
Yeah.
We have Romo, who has an organization. I think Donia also has an organization, and I even think that y'all had at some point people speaking out the terms on your behalf that made.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
what is the focus? Because
everyone, there are people out there that want to get married and have the right to get married and they can lobby for that.
Right.
What I'm saying is that the focus of some of the organizations right now is to fight the discrimination. And the person was saying that they don't think that the community is discriminated against, but if they're able to look back at the show, you'll hear examples of discrimination.
Well, just read the comments.
And again, also the fact that they are not recorded and they refuse to be recorded by the police is also the reason why you don't hear about it.
Okay, but question on following on that. Now, I've been honest. This is the first time I'm actually hearing that the LGBT community, and let's cross the LGBT community. Don't put by the LGBT community. That the LGBT community is lobbying against discrimination. Against discrimination, because in my little corner of reading
there is discrimination. Thanks for joining the conversation, Didi.
The fight to me has always seems to be. This is again public perception. I may not be,
because
about marriage and
that's sort of been the international.
Church.
That's been the international
news and all of that. So this has been
the
affecting
international
here.
focus.
So you would say it's affecting?
But at the end of the day, just because legislation changes does not mean attitudes change and discrimination
stops.
So, I mean, while they have been focusing on the right to get married, etc., people are still being denied services and all these things.
Right.
So we're sort of taking an approach where we sort of address some of the underlying issues before we get to that. I mean, silently, in terms of not publicizing it, but not necessarily going behind people's backs, because at the end of the day, those who attend our sensitization sessions can very well tell.
Right. So where I'm really getting at, hey Didi, we talked about you earlier, so I hope you go back and watch. But what I'm saying is that I appreciate where Equal is coming from, and Equal is coming from. And again, they talk about staff that have worked with me and clients that have worked with Equal. So what I'm saying is though that this speaks volume to me, because I'm in the same field as you, and against discrimination and against abuse and stuff like that, marginalized groups. But I'm just saying that it's a little bit warming to find out that the fight is against discrimination. If your fight is for marriage, fine, by me too. But I'm just saying, I think the general perception, and this is where we'd love to see the PR pop up a little bit more, that people thinking about, gay people want to get married and gay people want to do this and that, and it's far more than that, because the most serious thing to me on the books, as you say, is the discrimination. Is
but not being able to get married is discrimination in itself.
No. What I'm saying, that's fine, but I'm just saying, I'm looking at fighting the steps.
Yeah.
But for me, the most important thing for Kimar Safri, the most important thing is that the access that you're not being denied for services that you are paying the same taxes that everybody's paying for. The problem for me is that you can't. I saw a video and it was a very disturbing video. I don't know if you saw it, but this is just out here by our office where this guy ran. A couple of guys ran on this guy that was out there plying trade, and I mean I've seen people abuse the gay community, but what he did was a bit disturbing because people were saying I thought he was gay too. That the guy with the video, because he took the video and then put it at the person.
Yeah, well, again,
and it was wrong.
Yeah,
so those are things I would champion fighting.
Yeah, and there's internal, stigma that happens within the community because they're discriminated.
But it's becoming more evident now because we have the smartphones and the social media, and that is why I don't care if it's Christians, non-Christians, or what. Those injustices we should be standing up against, because there's no way that someone should feel unsafe standing up here, there, sleeping here, there, and then you have somebody going as the distance now of putting a frame up somebody's tail or whatever the case may be. And I feel sorry by saying I wish that the person had a life to really jut something long so yeah, because
you don't want violence.
I have a question for you, Mike.
I have no problem with that.
And wrapping up. Know that you have the recognition of civil unions in Barbados.
No, we don't have
it's part of the plan now.
Yeah.
What next for your organization?
Nothing changes because, as I said, legislation does not mean attitudes change.
Right.
So we have to keep fighting the fight that we fight. We have to continue with the sensitization. We expand that in a sense that, because when I say expand, is because we've only really tackled a small section of society that we directly work with.
Okay.
So in terms of reaching now the police and the media so that they can address the points and use the correct language. Again, educational institutions so that they know how they can navigate.
You guys need to speak the thing. It's a gay man going to jail or
well, exactly.
Do you have plans in the future to engage the government directly?
We've had some sort of dialogue with them, which has led to the inclusion of the sexual orientation within the discrimination bill, which was also advocated from allies within the HIV/AIDS Commission, because again they've been sensitized working with the community because they're considered a high-risk group for contracting HIV. So we had we just, because again, everyone has a right to engage the government and educate them, and hopefully the government will listen. But again, what happened was that we did, but discrimination based against gender identity and gender expression were included from that bill, and again.
Sorry, go back on that. What you said, gender
identity and gender expression. So, for example, someone can identify as male and be biologically male, but they express that masculinity, perhaps, I guess, alternatively to what society deems normal. Perhaps we deem it as a bit more effeminate. So there's discrimination because he's expressing his masculinity in this way.
Okay. What becoming the case from Alexa Hoffman that was filed in courts challenging the Barbary laws? I don't
think there's been any progress there yet, from what I understand.
Okay, I got two questions here to ask, and you can answer them in the two-part job. One is, I see the fight on discrimination, but unless there is policy where you can be criminalized or penalized for discrimination by a fine or by prison terms. One, do you ever think that there would be an end to discrimination against the
It's going to take a very long time, because if you look at racism and the Black Lives movement shows that even though the segregation has been outlawed, and there's all these now the voting rights and all this for Black persons, doesn't right, the systemic racism still exists, and so the discrimination is cultural and systemic in some cases.
My second question, following up to that. Now, the government have talked about bringing a referendum as it relates to the same-sex marriages. Now, judging on the fact of everything that we discussed here on the show, and the fact that we've also talked about the fact that Barbados is like 92% Christian, I would also say a Christian-minded community. Now, do you, within Equal, I don't know if you have Equals. Forgive me. I don't know if you guys have started to look at statistics or data to say if a referendum like this makes sense, and if you see it passing.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you shouldn't really be putting the rights of a minority to a majority vote to begin with. But also, I mean, Peter Wickham's organization, I think it's Cadres, they've recently redone the study, but I think about 7 years ago or so did a study on the attitudes towards the community, and it's still in the minority of those who like accept and tolerate, etc. So putting it to a referendum it's pointless. Yeah, it is pointless if the community can't really advocate for it. If the government doesn't share plans on when it is and how they're going to execute the referendum, how can we advocate for it? But personally, and from persons that I've talked to in the community.
So why don't again keep bashing you when it comes to PR?
Which I don't blame you, but I'll just address that quickly. Is that because we are trying to address the issue of access to services, and we provide some of those services ourselves, we sort of left, I guess, the PR to other organizations.
Right,
like
so Be Glad and all
we
of
didn't
that.
want to be too public, because persons might not want to associate or get services from us if we are too public.
Right, so I understand your position, Equals position, quite fine. I also will bash, and I know Romo is listening, so I will also bash the PR on her end as well. True. Because I think that the stance should be made that it is pointless to have a referendum when you are. It's like me saying, I want a referendum for homeless. I mean, 250 people homeless in Barbados. How much?
Well, I mean, again, this was not something that the community said that they wanted.
But it's not something the community said that they didn't want either.
No, so the BLP just decided they would put it in their manifesto. And so they want to honor their manifesto.
Right. Yeah, but it does more harm than it.
Not to my knowledge, I can't say that.
But I think the referendum does more harm than it does good.
Exactly.
Because when people say, "Oh, well, that's what we want to give people vote here because the referendum approved," so that is where the fear of the referendum.
Exactly.
So I just want to put
more stigma. More stigma.
Result from it.
I just want to bring my two final things for the night. Number one, I will ask you if you had a chance to. Well, you're on the show now. What if you had a chance to speak directly to Prime Minister Myanmar Motley, right? What would you say to her now would be your wish list, one. And
that wish list long, huh?
No, you can shorten it. And then number two, Kiefer Ellis Antrobus actually asked you a direct question here.
Yes, sir.
She said, Michael, have you been closely following other Caribbean countries regarding discrimination faced by your community? I ask because I have read how crazy things can be in Jamaica, for example, and I am wondering how you think Barbados compares. Are things better here, in your opinion, or worse?
I think they're different. They're not better, they're not worse, they're different. The discrimination is different. Again, also because persons have their dignity that they want to uphold. So they're not going to tell someone that they've been beaten or discriminated against. So then you're not going to hear about it as well. So you hear about it more in other media because I guess these persons want it to be known that they have been discriminated against. But if you don't hear about it, then you will assume that it does not happen.
Fallen Best has a comment here. To my knowledge, there is no. Hold on. There's no. You can answer it at the end. To my knowledge, there are no laws in Barbados that discriminate against homosexual. There are laws against criminalizing specifically the act of buggery, which were upheld by laws of lords as public health issues. If a man were to be arrested for buggery, a male or female, there is no discrimination based on sexual preference.
Right. No, I mean, no, he makes a good point. But as I was saying earlier, this because buggery is associated with homosexuals, because people now really dub down sexuality to the act of sex. That's why it's so closely associated. So then, because it's illegal, people will say that it is wrong, and then that perpetuates the stigma of towards the community, and stigma results in discrimination.
My last point would be, from what I observed from the comments and from what I observed here, we are coexisting in a space with no discrimination. We're able to share views, but equally you understood our points and we understood your points. And I'm guessing that this is what you would like to see in a wider society, right? My thing would be that the Christians have their views and what they understand to be biblical principles, and the LGBT community have their principles. What I don't enjoy is the tension and the friction between the two.
Yeah,
so I don't like when the LGBT is hanging down on Christian religion and bashing it and dragging it, right? And I don't like to see when
Christians doing the same thing.
Doing the people.
Right.
So while it is
We've always coexist.
we always coexisted, right?
Yeah,
So
choice.
I don't get what is the fight or the kill cow about having persons that the LGBT community advocate for what they want. That's their right, that's okay, right? The church will come and advocate for what they want. Now when you speak to the laws of the land now, which is where the community is going, they're saying, well, we want laws to come in to protect our interests, which is skewed away from us because the society is weighted towards, I can say, Christian mindedness, right? But the Christians are saying, well, hey, don't change the constitution or the laws in the country to suit any minority group, because these are our constitutional principles are supposed to be Christian minded as well.
Melvin Iron Mike Tyson said the fight is acceptance.
Yes. So my thing is, I think that we need to get to a point where we where we are accepting and inclusive of all persons from society.
Definitely.
Barbados is not going the divisive route, or it can't go the divisive route because we are too small for that behavior. And as we all know, heterosexuals and homosexuals contributed significantly to keep a society, and still doing so very much in a significant way. Right?
And I think that's what the Prime Minister acknowledges and keeps saying no one gets left behind. Regardless, I mean, we're talking about that in the sense of the this community, but it applies to everyone else who's discriminated against. And then it puts less pressure on Kimara as well in some cases, right? To not leave anyone behind and to make sure that everyone has the same rights to be able to contribute to the society, especially now with COVID-19 and the resources that are limited towards us. There needs to be more ways to come together and make sure that Barbados thrives under these conditions.
So now you've spoken about the Prime Minister. What would you tell the Prime Minister you want rather than
the only wish list that I would have for my Prime Minister is that she listen to us when we engage the government.
Right. You can't do nothing better than that.
Right.
Because I tell you, as an advocate, all you want is for them to listen.
Right.
But only listen and do.
But make sure you come with all your points. Make sure you come with all your
of course,
to support your argument.
Of course.
So that you won't be saying, but this is what we want, or this is what how the society is. You can say, well, factually, or from a logical perspective, this is why we should go towards this. This is how it would benefit the country and so on.
But don't understand LGBT issues.
I can't speak to that. What I would speak to is that.
I don't know that the DLP did.
Right. No, my whole thing is that regardless of issues or not, it's all about having a credible argument.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the same thing. And that's what Martin Luther King was trying to do. That's what with civil rights.
At the end of the day,
Nelson Mandela
she needs to be a voice for her people as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to come from what she understands.
But we watched the interview online, right? We watched the interview online and we saw how the Prime Minister dealt with the guy who asked
BBC.
if people are allowed to be gay.
I think he was just an idiot, though.
But
No,
seriously,
actually have nothing against what he asked.
Why?
It shows you that with the media over there, far different and far have the balls to ask questions that
or the perception that they may think. Or the perception that they may have of us as a culture.
Because the media, international media, always says that it's illegal to be gay in Barbados. Obviously,
so they sensationalize things to us. That is where we could.
I think Barbados is one of the most open countries.
But no, that is where we could say that we have a strong leader in. We have a strong leader as a prime minister because I've seen a lot of the international media. And we're not going off topic here, guys, but I've seen a lot of the international media push our prime minister in the corner, and she pushed them right back. So I don't understand where international media get the balls to play. They want to push or to say things to think that we prime ministers are dummy. We prime ministers are strong. And as again, I was honored to see when we were added the homeless rather was added into the manifesto as well. And the all-inclusiveness are showing that no one was left behind. That she would look at and she had not failed in that regard.
I don't see it as the international media thinking that she's a dummy. I think they're just doing their job. Their job is to ask questions, whether hard or easy.
Well,
the media here do not ask those questions.
Because of fear,
exactly.
Penalized.
So international media they ask questions. But I want to address something though. I don't know why would Kimar Stewart think that Mia may know about the LGBT.
No, you ain't know.
I don't know why you would think that.
I in this conversation,
guys. Let me get back on track.
So,
in terms of closing comments and so on.
Any closing comments?
I have some. When you're finished.
Some I will later have one.
I have one. All right.
I think for me,
and then I give it over to the guests, and that's it.
And I've been getting messages privately. We've been seeing the messages. People really enjoy the discussion tonight. I think that what is important to understand is that it goes back to a comment that Victoria Graves made. It's all about equity of rights. And the fact of the matter is that every Barbadian is entitled to the same rights that all Barbadians enjoy. Whether you are gay, you're straight, you're lesbian or otherwise, it doesn't matter. Once you're Barbadian, it's all about you having the same rights. There's not supposed to be special rights for heterosexuals and special rights for the LGBTQI or LGBTQ plus community. That's not what we're advocating here at all. But it is clear that there's been incidents of discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community, recorded or unrecorded, among their group, and as Barbadian citizens, it shouldn't be happening.
Correct.
The same access to healthcare, the same access to all the services that we enjoy should be entitled to everyone in society. People would have their own views about religion and what's right and what's wrong, but regardless, we have to live together as one community in Barbados. That's just my argument. That's just my final case.
So you have any closing remarks? Hold on.
Yeah, well, as we can see, things are definitely changing, and you can have both principles that exist in the LGBT community and Christian community.
They always exist.
And it's going to always exist. What, as I say, we don't enjoy is the fighting and the fact that you call a Christian, you can be or vice versa. But as I said, both sectors of society contributed significantly, and now is not a time to really be excluding any group from economic opportunity or economic development. So my thing is just understanding, acceptance, and let's be tolerant.
Michael, I will say to you that I am very glad that you came here tonight.
Of course.
You know, persons often have this boogeyman in their heads about what a homosexual male or female should be. Right? And, you know, discussions like these will help to bridge the divide. Right? Kimar is absolutely correct that, you know, the Christians have this belief, and I'm a Christian. Christians have this belief, homosexuals have this belief. But as you said, Kimar, we just have to learn as different groups to coexist. Because the honest truth is, if you are a Christian, there's a saying, the only person that can judge you is God. And you know what? I don't know if what you're doing is right. You don't know if what you're doing is right. But when the time comes, the great master in heaven, he will determine what is right.
Okay. Damani, anything?
I just want to add, I'm okay with the acknowledging the same-sex union regarding getting services provided. As we go deeper into referendum to get other things, I may not be in favor of them, but I do think though that we need to, at the end of the day, that we're all human beings and we must be able to access services. I work for an organization that a lot of persons within that community came to get tests done, and there were special privileges that were offered to them by having the service given to them at closing time, just for them. So I know what it takes. I know information on it. I know what some of the issues that you have. So kudos to the government if they go ahead with this, and we will see what the referendum brings.
Michael, closing remarks for you.
Thanks again for having me, fellas.
Thanks
and thanks for a rich discussion. All I want to say is, again, we're just, the community just wants to coexist. Just want to have the same rights, accept the same services, not be denied basic rights, because at the end of the day, the community just existing does not infringe on anyone else's rights. We don't want special rights. We want the same rights. And yeah, we've always been here, so, we deserve them.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone said we had a really good show. Log in late, but committed. We definitely watch later. Some people said yes.
And share it too. Encourage you to share it too.
So we want to encourage you to share the conversation. It was very rich. We also want to encourage you to like us, follow us, share us, so that we're going to have a very interesting one next week as well, to hear the rebut of this for the Christians. For the Christian community as well. Thank you, Sandra. We had a great DD. Thank you for saying that we had a very good discussion. We're sure it's maturing.
And I think that we encourage how enthusiastic we get.
Yes. And thank you for the watch tonight. At one point we went over 100 and plus. So guys, you kept us steady. We are at 90. You kept us steady. It goes to show though. Michael, that people are really interested in hearing what they have to say. And I'm glad that we could have been able to provide a platform where we could understand and have a much more informed about the whole LGBTQ community, and to have a different perspective. I hope that people's minds were shaped. I agree with you guys 100%. There has to be
minds.
Right. We're here to inform you, but at the same time, I hope that people's mind were changed tonight as it relates to discrimination against the LGBT community, and across the board on anybody in the minority, homeless, whether it be the disabled, wherever. We just need to, as a community, we need to. I would say that one of the best things I saw coming out of COVID was the fact that Barbadians became all inclusive to each other. They shared. I saw it with my eyes. They gave. They didn't. I saw a Barbadian community came together during COVID, and that is a community that I would like to hold. And despite what you feel or think about people, it does not mean. I used to have people say to me, "Man, he homeless. He live his life," but we don't ever know when or how we will fall to situation or circumstances. And discrimination is something that you don't want. You don't want somebody to scoff at you because you don't in the dirt or because you look different or act different. So people, we want to encourage you, please, to check yourself, respect people despite, you don't have to agree with us, you don't have to agree with anybody, but respect people. But we want to thank each and every one of you for watching the show tonight. I thought we had a very rich discussion. I hope we were respectful. Yes, I hope we were. And that is good. And you want to see
what you're right.
But what would be nice too is if we could invite
Okay.
other persons from the other organizations to.
Yeah,
I have a
but
couple-
we have those on here ready as well.
Oh, it was, I think I missed that one. Innit?
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be good to get a couple
Couple
of us
on here together, yeah. So definitely we want to have more person.
Next.
Down the picture,
Don
yeah.
is up, Don
Don
is
is, I think overseas.
Don is
Don is overseas, right.
Right.
Peter's overseas as well, guys.
Right.
And so those are persons that we would try to garner some more information from. But what I would like is for you guys to just like the page, follow us. We are next week Tuesday at 6:30 again to the next interesting topic. You guys can continue this whole debate and robust conversation.
Yeah, they're gonna serious.
Yeah, you guys
each other,
can,
though.
but please be respectful. We want to wish everybody a blessed, wonderful good night. See you
Have a
again
good night,
next week
folks. Good night,
Tuesday.
folks.
Michael, thank you from Equals. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Have a